Let's create a pivotal impact. Hey everybody, Josh Hannabury here, Truck Focus Podcast. First off, hope you're having a really good day, and just super excited for my interview today. Is I have my buddy Shawn Mengel back, who's an over-the-road professional, joined us in episode 49, talked about his journey. Honestly, super empowering, and it's really cool to see just what Shawn's up to now. And I really wanted to highlight the fact that Shawn's going to walk us through in this interview just the different opportunities that truly do exist in the transportation industry. So for those that remember Shawn in his initial episode with us, he was able to kind of talk about the fact that when he was in the oil field and the fact that through the oil field here in Alberta and Saskatchewan, they put him through his class 1 training, which is to operate a tractor trailer, for example. And then from there, he was able to navigate from oil field work to a totally different type of hauling. For a long time, he was hauling fuel. And now he's up to something totally new, which I think is just, again, it's a great reflection of opportunity. The fact that you have to raise your hand and say, yes, I want to pursue this. And yes, I'm capable of pursuing it, but also really highlight his new industry and the level of training and I would say competency that they're making sure that people understand how to operate this type of equipment. Very cool. And I'm just super grateful for Shawn's time. So again, welcome, Shawn. Just super excited for our interview today. But before we get there, if this is the first time you've ever checked out a Truck Focus podcast, I really do welcome you to our community and I welcome you to today's episode, as well as to our dedicated listeners. Just want to continue to say thank you so much for your investment of time. It really does mean a lot. And I'm just excited again to share Shawn's journey and allow him to really express what he's going through, the opportunities he's pursuing. And yeah, please make sure that you like the episode, share it out, because again, there's a lot of people in our industry. I don't think that fully, I guess, understand the level of opportunities that do exist. So make sure that you share it out and ask that you do subscribe to the channel that you're listening on. So that way, again, the greater the following, the greater the impact. And yeah, super excited for the impact this conversation is going to have. Let's get to it. Shawn, my man, welcome back to the Truck Focus podcast. Really excited for our conversation today. Obviously, we were talking before we hit record, and I was just getting jacked when you were kind of talking through some stuff. I'm like, oh, that's good memories. So really grateful that you're back. Really excited to talk about the fact that you had some major changes in your career direction, and it really does highlight the opportunities in transportation and logistics. So I thought it was really a good opportunity for us to obviously connect again, and we just have a good conversation as it is. So I'm just, welcome, man. Thanks so much.
Well, thanks for asking me to come back. I had a blast last time, and this will be great too.
Good. No, I appreciate that. So why don't you give us a quick recap of who is Shawn and maybe give us a little bit of your backstory right before you moved?
Well, I lived in Saskatchewan, hauled fuel. I was working straight nights, last 5 years, hauling fuel and just, driving all over southern Saskatchewan, experienced the prairie life and, just doing what everybody does, just earning a living, and something, new came up, a new opportunity, and kind of jumped out, a new change of scenery and a new way of life.
Powerful. Yeah, no, that's, I think that's something that I always talk about opportunity in the industry. And when you're living proof that there's opportunity in industry. So episode 49, when Shawn was first here, he talked about how the oil field, basically working, then all of a sudden he got his class 1, was able to help him really navigate the transportation over the road perspective. And to me, it's really powerful, again, from when it's coming from someone that's actually living it, because I'm not driving anymore. I still navigate through industry just in a different way. But I think it's really important to highlight that, because far too often people can get bored with their role. Like, I don't think we live in the day and age where it's like, I'm going to be this for the next 50 years and then I'll retire. Like, I don't think that attitude is necessarily our attitude, and mostly in our industry. So when someone can say, hey, this is where I started, and then I took this opportunity, and then I had to pivot here, and then there was a really good a really good opportunity, and I made a decision to pursue it. That's exactly what Shawn was able to do, and I'm just super excited for what he's been able to do since our last conversation, which we'll obviously dive into. But I'm really grateful, Shawn, because again, you're a great testament of what can be done, and obviously you're a family man, which I think is another super great component of who you are. Obviously, I am too. So anytime I can talk to people that do things for the betterment of their family, it gets me jacked, because I'm like, okay, like it's it's not just me. Like there's always gonna be tough times, but I know our families really, really are grateful. And I know we talked about your wife last time and everything that she does back home. So
Yeah.
there's just a lot of really important components here where I just, yeah, again, I'm just super grateful that you're back. So why don't you give us a rundown of what you're up to now?
Well, like I said, I was hauling fuel in Saskatchewan, working nights, long hours, 5, 6 days a week. And family's number one. And as much as, I did get to see my family because I was home every day, I was fortunate enough for that. But, it's still, it was draining, long hours, long weeks, road conditions, stressing out over that. And a buddy of mine, got, a job driving haul truck in BC and was telling me about it. And they were doing some more hiring. So I'm like, well, let's try this out. So now, I'm running with 300-ton, haul truck in BC in the mountains and trying that lifestyle out, and it's kind of, it'll be a better, work home relationship, like balance, because they do like 4 days on, 4 days off rotation. So I'll be able to spend a lot more home time, when family can move up here and everything like that. And kind of stepped out of the comfort zone, moved 8 hours away from home to start this new career. The family will come, hopefully this summer. And it's scary and exciting at the same time.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So we have a lot of listeners down south in the States. So 300 tons, what's the approximate conversion to pounds, just so people can picture what a haul truck does?
Well, fully loaded, I'm running, approximately 1.1 million pounds.
See, that
Right.
is
So weights are a little bit higher than the 170,000 pounds I was hauling before.
yes, just a little bit, maybe just under a 10x. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that, 1.1 million pounds. And for the average person that hasn't been in the environment, you're in, and where prior to my, I guess the journeys in now, when I was working in the oil field, I was fortunate to be around it. It's just a number that you can't really fathom. It's not something that you can think, okay. And like, you literally would be like, okay, what's the weight of a high school? I don't know. So it's 2 million pounds. Okay. So half of the weight of a high school in a truck, a heavy haul, obviously a massive mine truck. That's, to me, is just honestly one of the coolest things. And bring it back to our childhood, playing with big Tonka trucks. Like, you're living the life, man.
Yeah. Now I'm a big kid playing with big Tonka trucks.
Yes.
Like I'm essentially driving a small house around.
Yes.
Like on average, they're 25 feet tall, 25 feet wide, and about 50 feet long. And going up and down the hill in circles all day or all night long. It's great. It's fun. It's the world's biggest sandbox.
Yes. Yeah. I just think that's phenomenal. And for those that are listening, you need to watch, because when Shawn's face, when he's talking about it, I'm just like, there you go. Like I call those passion moments where I'm like, there's a lot of pride there. There's a lot of excitement there. And it's just a fascinating part of our industry. So again, I'm glad that you're able to be there. And then from the family perspective, one of my questions I wanted to go through was what sparked the change, but also how, when you're making the process to change, how important was it to listen to what your family had to say? Like, obviously, if your wife was a hard no, that has a play on your mind. So how important to you is it when you're making the decisions? Yes, should I apply? Okay, I got an interview. Yes, should I go for it? But also, what would you say was the driving factor? Was it the fact that you wanted a more stable, like at home 4-on-4-on lifestyle, or what would be the major, I guess, driving force for the change?
Well, like my wife, she was, getting tired of, me being gone at night, driving the, icy highways in the wintertime and driving through blizzards. And she was up half the night, worrying about it, and we just wanted something. We couldn't make plans or anything. It was hard to make plans with the job I had because I didn't know what time, even day to day, I didn't know what time I was going to start because I had to wait till, day shift came in when they were done. So it's just hectic. It was consistent, but hectic, if that makes any sense. Like it was too hard to plan anything or make appointments, and still not throw off the schedule. So like this opportunity came up where it would give a lot better, home work balance, making the same, if not, more money, which is more like and I'm home, basically like if I didn't do any overtime, I worked half a year, on a 4-and-4 rotation. Yeah, like I'm not like I won't get like Christmas off and stuff like that every year. Like that isn't really going to be like it was with my last job where, I could have took the holidays and stuff like that. It's a little different here, but we were used to that when I was on the rigs, like Christmas is when we can all be together. It doesn't necessarily need to be that exact day. It's all about family and when we can be together. So, and this opportunity to just give us a lot more. Like it's the outdoor lifestyle that this area offers. The hiking trails, the off-roading that we can do, quadding, skiing in the winter. It's just we're a very outdoorsy family, and we just wanted to live somewhere where we don't have to drive to go do this stuff. Like it's literally the ski hill in town here is I can walk there in 10 minutes if I wanted to walk there. It's the community that we thrive to find and didn't know about until I heard about this job.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I like that. So for those that listen or will listen to episode 49, something that Shawn, I think, painted a really good picture of is his care for family. And why I think that's so important in this major decision is because a lot of us that have families, you make decisions as a family. So you're always looking for the pros. There's always going to be something that, oh, I don't really like that. Or, oh, how about this? Like there's always that side of it. But collectively, it's nice to hear that you guys as a family could say, well, we want to be in a place that we can do this and we want to be together. And when you're working nights before, remember you were talking about, well, you still got to sleep. And when you have a house full of kids and you have a dog and there's this life happening at home, it's hard to sleep. Part of it is because there's things that might wake you up, but part of it is you want to be involved. And I think that's a big component. So being in an environment now where you have the time off, if you're not taking overtime, because I think overtime is a beautiful thing. It's it's a nice feeling, especially as men, because I think a lot of times men, we just have to miss stuff because if we're the main breadwinner, okay, that's just part of our commitment to our family. So knowing again, okay, if it's Christmas, I'm not physically there on the 25th, but I'm there on the 28th. Okay, well then we'll celebrate on the 28th. But yeah, I'm really happy for you, man. That's really good.
Thanks. Like that was like a big drive. Like we sat down as a family as a whole, like right down to like our 4-year-old. We sat down and we talked about it. We weighed out the pros and cons, moving 2 provinces over. Like it's a big thing. Like my daughter, she's, 16 years old. Taking her away from her friends in grade 11. This is like she's in grade 11 this year, and like surprisingly enough, she was right on board with it. She said, "I just want to finish grade 11 in Moose Jaw. I'll start grade 12. In BC, and we'll go from there." Like everybody was pretty on board with it, and it's just to get a new scenery for us, and distraction for my boy. Like the more we can keep his mind off of his problems, the better that is too. And we're hoping that the climate here and everything will help him, in his recovery and stuff like that. So
yeah, that's phenomenal, man. And I just, in our industry, I think a lot of those like intimate conversations, it's not really something that we would really talk about, but it's so important because that's a core part of our being. So it's nice to hear from your 4-year-old to your 16-year-old. Okay. And we talk, like my family and I, we talk about a family mission all the time where how do we pivot? And is this best for the family? Yes. Okay. And yeah, changing schools is tough. So great work to your daughter for having a good mindset. But ultimately, like, especially in today's day and age, social media, it's so easy to stay in contact and when you can still make trips and stuff. But yeah, anyway, I think that's really cool. So I know when you got your class 1, being in the oil field, there's certain things that you're trained on. Obviously, you got to get your license, but you're not just hauling one trailer or you're not just hauling the same type of equipment over and over. So there's a big learning curve there. Obviously, hauling dangerous goods is what we call it up here in Canada, or hazmat down south. That's a massive learning curve too, especially if you think of, okay, potentially this is a bomb and I'm going on icy highways at times, or I'm dealing with, like last time you talked about too, like some places just aren't open because it's 3 a.m. So those type of hurdles you had to learn through. How has the learning curve been now being obviously on site, operating a massive piece of equipment around other massive pieces of equipment? Sorry. How has that learning curve for you been just for your own personal self? Obviously you're a professional, you're a smart cat. So how has that process been for you?
Well, like I was telling you before, like it was like, the first time I walked up to the tele double when I started on the rigs, I looked up and looked at this big, huge piece of equipment. I'm like, what did I just get myself into? And, and it just, clicked, it fell right into place. And then, I started, getting into smaller rigs and then got my 1A. And then I started hauling fuel. And then all of a sudden I'm pulling, you know, I'm 100 and some odd feet long, going down the highway, 170,000 ish pounds, 72,000 kgs, fully loaded bomb driving the highway. I look in the mirror and I'm like, what am I pulling here? Like, this is unreal. Like, it was mind blowing. And then I walk up to this haul truck and everything just kind of seems small from that point. I'm looking up at this thing and I'm like, what did I get myself into? But, and it's just like I sat in that seat and everything's a lot more in perspective in that mine. Yeah, that truck's big, but you know what? We're small equipment out there compared to the shovel. It looks down at us, but we're still looking down at a D11 cat. So it still shows you how big we are, but, still small at the same time. And with all the other trucks and bigger equipment, it's all in perspective now, and the training for it, like they, even after I was released and driving on my own, they were awesome about it. They would, pull me over to the side of the road, make sure I'm doing everything right, answering any questions. Like, they got their own special channel on the radio. If you got any questions, no matter how, stupid you might think it is, there's going to be somebody on the training channel that's going to be there to answer it. Like they still, like, you got a logbook to fill out every day before shift. You got to do a circle check like you do with, driving truck and stuff like that. Obviously, things are a little bit different that you're looking for, but it's all in the same general idea. Walk around, make sure your tires are good and stuff like that, because you don't want to be going down, the haul road loaded and also have a big blowout on a tire and stuff like that. So you try to, do all your checks on that to try to prevent. Obviously, it still happens. It happens with trucks, anything, but you do your best to try to prevent all that stuff.
The so a big area in my personal and professional opinion in the transportation, so over the road industries, is I know that there's a much greater need for orientation. So what you just described, where it's not just, oh, you have a license, here's your keys, good luck. And hearing that depth of an orientation and what we were talking about prior to hitting record, to me, that is something that I strongly believe the trucking industry needs. We need to ensure that people have support during the process but also after, because a lot of things come up. You can't recreate every possible disaster in training, but when something comes up and it's not normal, if say the normal sequence is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and now it's starting to say ABC, ABC, and you're like, oh crap, what does that mean? It's nice to have someone that you can say, hey, this is what this thing is dinging at me. What should I do here? Oh, don't worry about it. It's this. Thanks. So instant peace of mind, obviously the right answer. So I like that they have that, and I think that is really needed. But in your experience and before, when you're doing, like, obviously fuel hauling and oil field, do you see the difference between depth of orientation, training, and support?
With some companies, yeah, like, obviously I still got a lot of friends that are still, over the road and stuff like that. And like when they first got their license, it was that, here's the keys, there's your trailer, go load it. Oh, you haven't loaded it before? Well, figure it out. If you're really struggling, come ask, like, we're busy over here doing this stuff. And then, like with co-op or like with fuel hauling and, stuff like that, they're trained a little bit more intensive, like the bigger companies, they want to make sure that, everything's falling in and everybody's following the, right procedures and all that, because it starts getting a little bit more dangerous. And I'm sure it's like that, with any of the big carriers out there, like any fuel hauler or any, even just pulling like dry goods or flat deck. And you go to, big, I've worked for small rigging companies, where safety, they kind of turn the other eye, just get her done kind of thing. And then you get to a bigger and it's like, no, this is the way we do it. We don't use this kind of thing for a chain boom now. That's too dangerous. We got this other style that we use. Every time you see one of these, take that out. And then the other company's like, we'll take that from you if you don't want it. It's just try to get the job done. It's nice going to a company like this because, they don't want instances to happen. The best is, ask questions, take your time, do it right. They're not paying people by the load, like, it's just do it right, don't rush. And if you don't feel comfortable, talk to somebody, we'll get it figured out.
Yeah. And I think that attitude needs to be injected everywhere because the trickle effect of the boomer and the chain is, I don't know, I got it from that guy. It's like, okay, like what's really, I'm so involved in those components of industry from like a compliance standpoint that I'm like, oh, I wish everyone would do exactly what you just walked me through, because it's just, you're preventing beforehand, but you're also thinking of like the retention standpoint too, which I think is important. So all in all though, man, I'm really happy that you're on this journey. It's really cool.
Well, thanks. We're all pretty excited about it too. Change can be fun, scary, but it's fun.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. So we kind of talked about it before, and what would you say would be, I'll use the word enjoyment. I'll be mindful of the word, but what would you say is the number one thing with, I know that there's certain things that you can't say and that's really great, but what would you say is the number one thing you're enjoying in your new career in transportation, so in logistics, a main part of it that you maybe were caught off guard that you didn't actually think you didn't know existed? What would be one thing that you're kind of like, oh, I really like this space? What would
I
that
wouldn't
be?
say so much like I wasn't expecting this, but the biggest enjoyment I got, like I loved one thing I loved about prairies, driving nights, the sunsets and sunrises that I saw on the prairies. Like you've seen on Instagram and stuff like that. Like I posted, northern lights, sunsets, sunrises, like beautiful pictures. Here, the mountains. Wow, the scenery. Like I'm a prairie boy coming to the mountains. I visited the mountains in the summertime, when I was younger and stuff like that on family vacations, but I never did see them in the winter, besides from an airplane, flying up north to work. And I get here and you're topping the, top of the road, getting to the top of the spoil, and you just see like the sunrise or the sun setting over top the mountains in the distance, and you're looking at mountains, like there's no houses, there's no nothing. It's just mountains, untouched mountains for as far as you can see. And that's just every time I drive up there, it's just like, wow. I thought that like I love my prairie sunsets and sunrises, but it's something else with the mountains.
Yeah. To me, that's home because I'm from BC. And whenever we go back and you're in a location where you're getting the sunset and it's just going through like basically the edges where mountains connect, I'm always just like, oh man, that's why I miss this place right now. It's just, it's so spectacular. So that's
And
nice.
like as far as like the actual working thing, like what I like is like my last job, when the weather's bad, like we're shut down. We either didn't go on the road or we had to park where we were and wait it out. Here it's kind of the same thing, but like we don't get out of our truck. Like they'll, shut it down and visibility is too bad, but like we're back at it right away. And like they're constantly working. Like there's graders running around everywhere and dozers, and they're keeping the roads up. So like we can keep that constant going. I'm not worried. I'm not looking at my phone before work. Oh, how's the highway? Am I going to be working tonight? There's a lot more consistency here. They're not going to send us home for anything. Like they'll keep us sitting in the truck there, waiting to go again. It's the same thing. Like the wheels don't move. They don't make money there either, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think so. We talked about again before. I wish we were recorded some of it before and plugged it in because I'm like, oh, that's such a good point. But again, in our industry, consistency and pay is a key part to retention. And we were talking about that. So in your past, like former employment and stuff, when you got buddies that are parked for a day and a half because the weather report says something but it's not even accurate, that's frustrating because you have mouths to feed, you have bills to pay, but you also have a life to live. That this world we live in, it costs money. So being in your position now, I'm grateful that you have that peace of mind because you know that, hey, I'm working, I'm here, it's good, and it's consistent because consistent over the long term is really a key component to retention. And I was in a different conversation a couple of weeks ago with a carrier who that's their pay structure literally is they'll take the risk and they understand the weather. They run from Calgary to Vancouver for most of it. And they're like, I know what it's like sometimes where you get shut down in Calgary because you can't, well, I guess it'd be closer to Golden. And like, you're not making it through till the morning. Okay. Have a sleep, have a good rest, and we'll get through it. Like they take the risk, but a lot of industry doesn't. So the fact that I'm not working today, I guess I'm not working tomorrow, that is really eating away at your own peace of mind. So being in that position is nice. But
it's hard. It's hard on the family, like on a family when that, like I was the only income coming in. My wife was a stay-at-home mom, and as amazing as she was, And as much money, if you broke it down to what she had to do in a day to get paid for, like we would have been able to retire years ago, you know. But like like we made the choice for her to be home. So when I didn't work, you know, the checks didn't come in. So it was always very stressful. Like this past winter, like that's one thing I still, you know, I'd wake up every day and check the highway report back in Saskatchewan. And I'd be looking, oh, I wouldn't have been working tonight, or, you know, I probably wouldn't be working tomorrow with the way the weather report is. And it's just, I talked to my wife and she's like, I don't miss that at all. And like, I don't either, you know, like it was stressful, you know, like a family of five, you know, and like small little zoo for pets, you know, we had enough animals and like we, there was a lot of mouths to feed if I wasn't working, you know,
Yes.
and this job, it just gives that stability. I miss, like, I'm not saying I'm not going to miss the industry, you know, like I love trucking, you know, and I still am trucking. It's just a little bit bigger. And, you know, when the ruts that I drive through are the size of pickup trucks, you know, some of the holes I drive, like driving through a puddle and I'm looking down and it's halfway up a 14-foot tall tire. You know, like I'm driving through 6, 7 feet of water, you know, you swallow up a pickup pretty quick. And that's just, you know, it's mind blowing. Like I didn't know what to, I thought I knew what I was going to expect, but it's just like when I said first going up to the rigs, you don't know until you actually see it. But then sitting in the driver's seat of that truck, and it was just like, it felt like I was there. I've always drove one of those. Like it didn't feel big to me at all once I started driving it. It was just a little bit to get to know because you're over on the one side quite a ways and you got, you know, 20 some odd feet of a truck off to your passenger side. You just gotta get used to that. And once that is good, you know, it's not too bad. And like the training that they go through, you know, like it's simulators, you know, they throw a lot of different scenarios. Like you're driving in the simulator and all of a sudden you got like an engine fire. So you gotta, you know, shut everything down, do everything. Like they really go through and it makes it have peace of mind that everybody that you're working around has gone through this training too. So everybody knows what they gotta do if something happens. And in the wintertime, they'll freeze a little section around, you know, make it solid ice, and they throw us down there a few times and show us different ways to control the truck if it goes into a skid and stuff like that, and different functions that the truck has to help prevent you from getting into that skid in the first place. You know,
Yeah.
it's nice having that, you know, and it's stuff that I didn't quite expect. Like I knew there'd be, you know, intensive training, you know, to drive one of those trucks. Like it's not like just running to the pickup and hopping in it, or even just a normal dump truck. Like, but I didn't think it was gonna be quite as intense as what they actually go through, you know. And it's good. Like it was, you know, a lot of reading, like manuals and stuff like that. And but it's
Yeah.
well worth it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. And again, those that are listening, you got to see it. Just watching his face, talking about what he's going through. Like I'm happy for you, but I'm also proud of you, man, because again, it's like you mentioned before, it's exciting but scary. And I think a lot of times that's where people stop is they'll live the rest of their life as, oh, that could have been a what if. And or that is sorry, a what if. And it's nice to know that you're like, no, I'm doing it. And it's I think anything like the honeymoon, I call it the honeymoon phase, where I'm sure you'll find something that used to really like monotonous in a year from now. That's normal. But it's really
Yeah.
cool to see just like how jacked you are on it and the fact that you're proud of it. And it's nice knowing the ripple effect for your family. Like there's so many wins there that, again, I just, to bring it back to the point, there's so many opportunities in our industry collectively. You just have to, again, be willing to try and be willing to
Well,
get
yeah,
trained.
like even like at the site itself in general, like the amount of highway rigs that I do see come there, like, well, you just imagine, you know, the fuel that has to be brought in, you know, to run those trucks. So you constantly see fuel trucks coming in, and like within the mine itself, like they got their equipment that they still have to haul around, you know, like the, you know, zoom booms and, you know, lifts to get up and work on this equipment, you know. So you're driving, like I remember, you know, like being on when I was on the rigs, like the last rig company, and I was up in the oil sands drilling up there and driving beside these trucks. And, you know, that was 10 years ago. And I'd be looking up, I'm like, man, it'd be fun to drive, you know, 10 years later. Now I get to look down at the trucks and they're probably doing the same thing, looking up, like, wow, you know, kind of a weird circle how that worked. Like when my friend first started out here and he posted on Facebook a year ago, he just went over his year here. And he showed me, screenshot and sent me the comment that I said. And it's like, wow, you know, I really would like, look, 10 years I wanted to drive one of those trucks. And he's like, look, a year later. So you're driving one now, you know, so kind of surreal at the same time, you know, like there's always something I wanted to do, but it's like anything, you know, you don't think it's ever going to work out. Like, it's really hard to get up in those jobs in the mines in northern Alberta and stuff like that without experience, and a company like this is willing to, take a guy and train him and get your foot in the door to be in this industry. That's awesome.
Yes. Yeah. What with that then, because what encouragement would you give to, maybe it's not heavy haul, maybe it's just a shift, a pivot in their own journey, but what would you encourage other people then that are kind of faced with, hey, maybe there's an opportunity here? What's something that you could say?
Like, don't give up on it. If like there's something like you see an opportunity somewhere, you got a family and everything, that you got to sit down and talk with them. Do the pros and cons, like what my family did. Like, we looked at like everything, and it just weigh everything out. Don't just be like, oh, I wish I could do that. Now I'm saying I wish I would have done this 10 years ago when I first thought about it. I didn't know about this place when I first saw these trucks. It was just up in the oil sands. But it just like, I should have done this years ago. But I would have maybe lost out on my experience and everything I did with hauling fuel and stuff like that. But like, everything happens for a reason. Like, everything, like I was telling you before, like, I started off, like, I went, pre-employment welding. Well, that got me into welding, and that led to me being a welding sales rep. And then that sales rep job got me the job at the last rig company I worked at. And that rig company gave me the 1A, put me in for the 1A, and then having my 1A got me into hauling fuel. And then hauling fuel kind of, pushed me towards, I'm driving the longest truck on the road right now, for hauling fuel. Let's get me into the biggest truck that you can drive. And I'm driving these haul trucks. Everything kind of happens for a reason. It's all in steps. You might not think it, but you actually break it down, something always leads to the next, right?
Huge, man. Huge advice. But that's a great summary too, because again, I get jacked whenever we talk. I love seeing the pictures that you're circulating, because the mountains are incredible, but it's nice knowing your journey and the appreciation that you have for, okay, I'm from the prairies and now I'm living literally in the mountains. Like, I think it's phenomenal. But yeah, for today's, basically as a summary, it's really nice to see opportunity. And then, as Shawn, as you mentioned a couple of times now, you really just got to go for it, weigh your pros and cons, but do what's best for your family. But I'm just really grateful, man. I'm grateful for our friendship. I'm grateful for the fact that obviously this is episode 2, definitely down to do more as well. But man, I'm just grateful. I'm really grateful.
One thing you got to make sure you got, like, especially what I had to do is I moved 8 hours away from my family. So you got to make sure your wife's on board, because that's a lot to ask of her. And like, we got to get our house ready to sell. We want to sell and move here. Well, she's, watching YouTube videos and, doing a lot of renos on her own, stuff that she didn't think that she could do. And she's sending me pictures and she's doing a heck of a job on everything, And like, it's a lot of me to ask of her. And I didn't even ask her. She's like, no, like, I'm not getting stuck here. We're moving. I'm doing this. You stay out there and get overtime and do whatever you can and come out on the days to do the bigger project when you can, and we'll get this done. So like, having a supportive wife like that makes it a lot easier too. But if your wife's not on board, it's not going to be an easy journey. It's not easy when she is on board.
So true. So true. Very wise words, man. And yeah, I'm super grateful for my wife too, for some of the things that she does. And I'm like, really? You did that? Oh, wow. Like, but yeah, we're very aligned, man. So, but yeah, just being mindful of time. Was there anything that you'd like to share today as we kind of come to a close?
Just, again, like, words, just don't give up. 10 years ago, I thought, like, I'd love to drive it. Now I am, and I'll still always have trucking, like, I'm driving bigger, but like I said, in the mine site itself, there's trucking in there. And, if you need to make that career change, look into it. Like, there is a way to make it happen. If there's a will, there's a way. Just don't give up. Like, I wanted to try to get into more of a safety end of things when I was trucking. And with this company, I'm going to have that opportunity to get into safety with doing this. Like, maybe I'll be able to get into training. I didn't have that opportunity the last company I worked at. Like, it wasn't very big, so I could do a little bit of training, but there wouldn't be a lot of new people coming. So on this one, if I can get into, training for trucks, or like if I get onto equipment and start training for equipment, I'll be able to, train the new people to do it the safe way, which I've always liked to be a part of, being, training, showing people how to do stuff. And, don't give up is all I got to say.
Yeah, man. Huge, very well received. And again, that's just a message that our industry needs. People in industry, people as whole, especially right now. Obviously, there's tough times happening, but yeah, that's key advice. So, Shawn, honestly, man, I'm really grateful, and I'll continue to say that. Like I like reflecting through conversations too, and I'm like, man, this guy's on fire right now. It's awesome. So, but yeah, I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the fact that you're honest and you're humble enough to join me, obviously, on the podcast. That means a lot too, because you're a busy guy. You're up to lots of stuff. So, but again, I'm just super grateful that you hop back on, man. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm super grateful that you asked me again. I had a lot of fun last time we did it. I enjoy our conversations. Even like when we text back and forth and stuff like that, it's always good catching up on everything that's going on. And I'm impressed with how you brought this podcast. Like I think I started listening and you were on episode 6, and I caught up, and I just like, I think it was by episode 10, I was caught up and waiting for the next one to drop. Like, you moved this podcast from, being, pretty decent and good listen to something I look forward to. Like, I'm not even, like, I'm not driving truck, but I go on walks and stuff here. So I listen to the podcast while I go for walks. Like, you've done an outstanding, you and your son both, an outstanding job with the podcast. And I can see this going big places.
Appreciate that, man. That really does mean a lot. And just the support, honestly, just hearing that, I'm just like, yeah. So thanks. No, I appreciate it. I do really appreciate the fact that you've taken the time to listen, but you've watched the the small milestones of getting a little better. So no, I appreciate that.
Well,
Thank you.
I've seen it grow into what it is today, and and it's every week it gets a little bit better. You tweak something a little bit more, and that's the way it should be. It's always going to get better, and it's just like, I hope you keep it up and you go for years to come.
Yeah, man. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's definitely our goal. We're because we just passed the year mark, so we were able to really reflect on just, okay, what's next. And we're like, Avery and I, we, like, my 12-year-old, we pre-recorded episode 100, it was 2 weeks ago, and that to us was like a real whoa moment, because again, that's a big number in podcasting. So for us now, yeah, it's just, again, like you said, a little better every time. But I appreciate the fact that you notice and that you said that. That means a lot. Thank you.
Oh, no problem.
Well, that's awesome, man. And yeah, like I said, I'm just grateful, and I'm excited for your journey. I'll be happy when obviously you and your entire family are together at your new home, because that's really important. But yeah, hopefully everything else stays well. And thank you so much for hopping on again, man. This was awesome.
Well, thank you again, and glad to do it anytime. It's always fun.
Okay, good. Okay, enjoy the rest of your day, buddy. Take care.
Yeah, you too.
Shawn, buddy, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast today. It's so great to see how well you're doing and how things have really adjusted well for you just in this entire transition from being an over-the-road professional driver to now a heavy haul mine operator and driver. It's just, to me, it's fascinating to see your journey. And obviously we check up on each other on social quite often. The pictures that you're taking in beautiful British Columbia, but it's just, honestly, man, I'm so happy for you. And I'm really grateful that you were able to share your experiences today, because I think it's really encouraging for a lot of others in our industry, or those looking to our industry, to say, hey, is this where I want to spend a lifetime? Is this where I want to spend my career, my best quote unquote years? And you've done a phenomenal job navigating through our industry, being successful, providing for your family. So I'm really grateful that you're able to just really showcase that again today. And just, man, I'm so thankful for your time. So as I mentioned at the beginning, if this was the first time you've ever checked out a Truck Focus podcast, I really do welcome you to our community. And to our dedicated listeners, I just want to continue to say thank you so much for your investment of time. It really does mean a lot. And I'm just, again, super grateful. So if you enjoyed today's episode, like I believe you have, I do ask that you like it, that you share it out, so that way other people can be encouraged through Shawn's journey, and subscribe to the channel that you're listening to. As always, let's create a pivotal impact. Bye.